Alright, good afternoon, good day. Stan here, here from JBSN Media. Today is lesson 2 of our Design Mastery Bootcamp. For today's lesson, we would be looking at elements and principles of design. Then we'll move to working with shapes and layouts, color theory, typography essentials. Those would be the things we'll be doing today. I believe we are all doing well and have been able to go through our first lesson. Okay, so Thursday we'll be having our first flyer assignment. That's our FAD 1, which is our flyer a day assignment. You would have to submit a total of 15 of those. Friday we move to the creative process, that is by imitation. We would also have our Saturday flyer day assignment, and then by Sunday you shall be submitting your first flyer week assignment. I know you're happy for the assignment too. We'll just place it in the group tomorrow and we'll let you know what you'll be working on for your flyer every week. Okay, so we are looking at elements and principles of design. What are some of the elements which makes a design good, which makes up a design? What are some of the principles that we have to bear in mind when making design? Okay, so we'll be looking at 7 elements first, and these elements are things which make up the design at the end of the day. Okay, so we have lines, we have shapes, we have form, value, color, texture, space, and we have, yes, basically those are the 7. Okay, now looking at line first. So line is in a composition or a document is anything which connects one or 2 points to another in 2D space. Okay, and lines can be actual or implied. Now by actual we mean that you can actually see that this is a line, all right, and by implied you put 2 shapes together or you put 2 objects together, and once the audience sees it, they're able to trace and imagine the line there. Okay, so you can see on the right side, you can see the that is the implied line over here. Okay, so we are having these bright stars in this picture and it's looking like it's forming a line. Okay, and that's an implied line. You can use implications or to depict objects sometimes. Okay, so just take note. Now we have implying lines are the creation of the human mind when points or objects in a certain way that the brain are aligned in a certain way that the brain seems a pattern or an object. Okay, so just take note. You would use a lot of implying lines to create very wondrous things. An example would be, we can recognize the Big Dipper from a random pattern of stars, and so we have our stars over here. You can imagine or you can figure out that yes, it's forming some sort of a line, and this is what the astronomers usually use to trace shapes in the sky. Okay, this on the other hand is an implied line. And why are we learning about lines? We are learning about lines because they can create direction, they can create momentum, some sort of movement. And so you see with this image here of the bee, there's a 2D diagram. It's just 2-dimensional. We can't see behind it, we can't see above it, we can just see what we've been presented with. That's what makes up a 2D image, and we can tell from the image that the bee is moving. How do we know this? Because of this line here. Okay, this line over here is drawing is depicting the movement of the bee. Okay, so the bee isn't moving. This isn't a video, but we're able to tell that there was movement in here. Okay, now lines can be used to create texture. Okay, and this, for instance, would move our mind straight to probably a napkin. Okay, some napkins have this sort of texture. Then also we have connection relationships, we have divisions or sections, energy. Now when you use the line sometimes, okay, in your design, you can use to partition your design. Okay, so you can split your design or your artwork into two by lines. All right, and the lines may differ. It could either be curvy, it could be zigzag, it could be just a straight line, and you would realize that these lines also form part of other shapes, and so all shapes start with a line. Okay, that's what I tell myself. So you can start to draw a rectangle. You would want to start with a line, one line, and then at about 30 degrees you draw your other line. At about 90 degrees you can draw your other line. You get a triangle. Okay, and when you use this triangle, you then form shapes. And so the next thing we'll be talking about will be shapes. Okay, now shapes are any 2D area that has an edge. Okay, so shapes have an edge, and an edge is because of it's where two lines are meeting. Okay, so you have a point here, or the vertex over here where the two lines have met, but what it forms when the two lines meet, it forms an edge. Okay, now shapes can be considered as objects within a composition or document. A body of text, an image, bullet points, all of these things create visual shapes in a composition. Okay, and even the spaces between the objects, that is the negative space, can seem to create a shape. So we have a shape like this. Okay, you would say it's a square. Okay, but someone may see this shape and say it's probably a square donut. Okay, why am I saying square donut? Square donut because we have this shape over here. Okay, so we have this shape over here, then we have an empty shape. So over here within this rectangle shape, there's nothing here. That's what someone may assume. Okay, and so we have that donut shape. Okay, but it's square in shape, or it has a rectangular shape. So that's about shapes. Now, and that's about negative space. Okay, that's about negative space too as well. Now we also have organic shapes. Organic shapes are shapes which we call them organic because of the texture or the kind of tool used in making the edges. Okay, the kind of tool used to create the edges is what we'll use to term that as organic shapes. So with organic shapes, you will see that it's not just one straight line. It's not definite shapes. Okay, we have some sort of errors inside which make it organic. When you hear organic in art or in graphic design, or mostly in terms of graphics, we are looking at error. Okay, the presence of error. Okay, because we believe that computer generated graphics and computer generated objects are in a way perfect. Okay, it's just one straight line. You can get to just one single straight line. However, if you are drawing it with your hand, you may have some irregular portions at the end whilst creating the shape. Okay, so an organic shape is a shape that we would see in term, okay, this is organic, this is hand drawn. We have geometric shapes, and geometric shapes is just a combination, or they are just shapes. It just uses polygons, okay, for in creating the shape. And so you can have hexagons, you can have pentagons, a couple of them together. If you look at a football, okay, the combination of pentagons and hexagons is what makes up that football pattern or that football design that you usually see. Okay, so those are geometric shapes. Now the types of shape include organic shapes, geometric shapes, abstract shapes, static shapes, dynamic shapes. Now these things aren't just here for fun. Okay, these are key words that you would use when searching for shapes, when looking for ideas in creating flyers. You look for geometric shapes, you would look for abstract shapes. Please, you understand? You can for now you can just look for these ones, geometric shapes or abstract shapes, and those will give you a variety of shapes with different coloring and all, but that would at least that's a starting point when looking for some shapes for your background. Okay, all right, next we look at form. Okay, form, the way in which the art you're making comes. Okay, it can either be 2D or it can be 3D. Okay, and the forms are 3D extrusions of 2D shapes. So when we talk about extrusion, we are looking at you taking one object, okay, and extruding that, elongating or trying to get other shapes from it, or making the shape look bulky, making the shape have depth. Okay, that's what an extrusion is. An example is a square becoming a cube. So you take this square, we have just a square like this, a square shape just here, made up of 4 lines, and then we extrude, okay, in 3D space. And so when we extrude, we sort of duplicate all these squares together, and it makes up the cube. All right, now 2D shapes can be manipulated to give an illusion of having 3D attributes. So we can also use our 2D object, but then you can make it seem like, or make it have the form of a 3D object. And how do we do this? One way is to understand how shadows are created. Okay, and so in understanding how shadows are created, you'd have to understand what the source of light is. So once you have your source of light, once you know where your shadow is supposed to go to, and you can then make a form out of anything. Okay, we'll come to the other objects, but for instance, text, typography. We have a text, let's say we have the word form. Once we add a shadow to it, okay, the shadows will usually go behind the object you are looking at. And so once you add a shadow to it, it will usually be darker, so you can make a darker, you can get a darker shadow. Once the shadow is towards the side, or once the shadow is around this area, you can then deduce that the light source will be coming from the right side, okay, right top. And so you can use that to create forms. Okay, Photoshop has some tools which can easily facilitate that, as well as Illustrator too, but these are advanced tools. For basics, what you do is that you can look at, for instance, this is called a call out. Okay, it's called a call out, CALLOUT. And what call outs are is that they are just ways to show conversations. Okay, they're just diagrams to show conversations. So if you search for call out, you can get this. So if you are looking for your flyer and you want to add something like this, just search for call out. Now this call out is here, and they've just basically duplicated this, painted it black, reduce the opacity, or reduce how clear it is, and then you have your shadow. Okay, now this is often achieved by using value shifts of the shape to suggest mass volume. Okay, by using value shifts to suggest mass volume around the shape to suggest the light and shadow. An example can be seen when using the common drop shadow effect found in many apps. Okay, so to do this in many apps, the effect or the tool is called drop shadow, and the drop shadow allows you to do this. So it does that by basically recreating the shape, but then filling everything with a black color, and then it would reduce depending on how dark you want your shadows to. You can just control the opacity of that. Okay, how bright, how clear or translucent, how opaque or translucent something is controlled by a tool we call the opacity. Okay, so the illusion of 3D form on a 2D surface can provide variety, can create interest. By interest, sometimes you want to single out something, okay, and so once you add a 3D object to it, it just draws your attention, okay. And you can also create direction too as well. So if for instance we have this, okay, and this is on a page. So imagine we have this and this is on a page, and I have let's say a text written in here, and the text I've written here would be lurking in the shadows. Okay, now it's creating some sort of perspective. If I should take this out, if I should take this box out and I type lurking in the shadows, I may not get the effect, or I may not get that effect. Okay, but once I place lurking in the shadows over here, and I also make the text lie on the floor by just changing the way the shape of the text is, it would give me that perspective that the shape is actually lying on the floor. But then you would see that over here we are just having the text facing as normal text looks like. Okay, we'll illustrate these things better in the practical session, but that's what you have for now. And also you can create some sort of hierarchy. Okay, hierarchy, look at this for instance. This is how those of you interested in UI UX design. So this is your this is our group, let's say a website design. Okay, it could be a website design, it could be a page design, it could be a magazine page layout. Okay, so immediately they add the shadow over here, it creates some sort of form, it creates some structure, I add some structure to the whole thing, so it makes it look like this is popping out. Okay, so take note of that. You can add forms to your graphic design just to make it spicy, just to spice up some of the things. Then we have color. Color is plays a very essential role in design. What is color and how can it be used? So it's often the most challenging of the design elements, and it takes practice to use color efficiently. You may not understand this statement now, but the reason is that now you can be making your design, you can start working on a design and everything is okay, but once you get to the point where you're actually coloring the thing, okay, you can see you realize that when you color it rightly, a lot will change. Okay, I'll use the bootcamp flyer for an illustration. Okay, so with our bootcamp flyer that we had, you would realize that we used a variety of colors. Okay, and now those colors that we use, the blend of colors that we use, and when you have a blend of colors looking seamless like that, we term that gradient. Okay, so you can have combinations of colors, you could have combinations of colors, you can have just colors within shapes. Okay, so speaking about shapes, you can also have colors within texts too as well, and that contributes to the general color of the artwork. Now this color would be used to produce a mood, tone, hierarchy, energy level, sense of time, okay, conceptual relationships. How does color get us these things? Now if you take mood, you can create a flyer and you would have the color of the flyer. Yes, you can create a flyer and the color of your flyer would be, let's take the color black. Okay, if everything in the flyer is black, it could create the mood of darkness. It could create the mood of sometimes partying. Okay, because you want like dark vibes and things. So you can add your main color can be black. You can have a black background. You can fly with a black background, and then you can add some bright lights. Okay, lights which for not your usual primary bright colors, but you could have like neon coloring. Okay, to it purple, have like some light blue, like some light cyans, and it's giving us party evening vibes. Okay, also you can have white. Okay, and white could give us maybe some, usually would represent official items. Okay, you have a document here typing on white background, then black text. Okay, it's official. You could also have things like purple. Okay, purple and violet colors together, and it will be giving you mystic vibes. Okay, that's how usually artists see colors. Okay, so each colors that we use represent different things. And funny how you've ever taken note of, let's say, your movies, you realize that if it's in the afternoon, we may use warm colors. The warm colors are between red to orange yellow, and if it's in the night, you'd usually see blue. Okay, for the night. Sometimes they use green colors too as well. So colors set the mood. Okay, we'll give you some activities to find out some of the colors in movies that you've seen around, and so you can interpret it more. Now, like herbs and spices, some color combinations work well together and some not as much. Mainly the reason why color combination is very difficult is because of how to blend them together well. Okay, and you can take inspiration from a lot of items. You can take inspiration from color from nature itself. Okay, and so you can look out there, you can see a flower, and you would have the green stem, you would have the pink let's say flowers. Okay, and some portions may be white. Bring that into design, we have pink, white, green. Okay, and just that alone should be a starting point to start combining colors together. Okay, now if you have a flyer and you go with a color like black, then you take brown, you may not really get the color combinations that you've chosen alone may affect the focus on the design itself. It can affect the mood of it too as well. Now, we also spoke about color controlling sense of time. Okay, and so if I have a flyer where I'm looking at warm, some not so bright and not so dark colors, just around the medium shades. Okay, those can tell us the sense of time we'll be looking at would be old time graphics or old ancient times. Okay, so sometimes you would realize that when in movies, okay, when you watch movies, you realize that when the director or when the movie producers want to let you have a sense of or want us to imagine that the actor is thinking, okay, or is thinking about an event which was probably in the past, you would see that either the entire scene becomes dreamy, either the color just changes, okay, to that scene, and that is telling us the sense of time in which they are in. Okay, so that is the hierarchy. Is how hierarchy is like we have big, small, tiny. It's just meant to direct the viewer's attention towards the most important thing on artwork or your piece of canvas. Okay, so that's about color. We'll go into details later. We have texture. So what's texture? It can either be tactile texture or visual texture. Okay, tactile texture is the variation in the characteristics of a surface which you can experience from touch. So when you bring that touch feeling, okay, into graphics, okay, it will just be represented as 2D. What do I mean? So everything has texture. When you feel rubber, okay, you know that okay, this is rubber. Why? It's very smooth. Okay, the imperfections are very little. But when you should rub your hand against wood. Okay, what would we feel? We would feel the grains of the wood. Okay, in design, you can also bring those concepts into designs by either taking the pictures of it or getting textures from online sources. So you can search for wood texture, you can search for paper texture. These things I'm mentioning is what's going to help you in adding some things to your design, which is going to make it very nice. Okay, so we have texture. So when you're searching for texture, be looking for wood texture, shirt texture, cloth texture. You can look for maybe carpet texture. And when you import these textures into your design, blend the colors well, and maybe incorporate it into some of the different elements. Maybe you can incorporate it into the shapes, maybe into the general background. You end up getting a visually compelling design. Why? Because we know the texture, we associate that texture, that tactile memory of the texture, okay, to the design. You can tell that, oh, okay, yes, this looks like some paper vibes. Okay, how do I illustrate or how do I properly illustrate let's say an Egyptian scroll? I can't have Times New Roman. I can't be typing Times New Roman and expect you to imagine that it's an Egyptian scroll. No, I have to first change the font. Okay, after changing the font, how do I even make it feel real? I'll have to employ texture. Okay, and so I'll go and get papyrus texture. Okay, add it to my background, blend it in raw, and it would look real as an Egyptian scroll. So that's how we work with some of these items. So an example of texture being used is how PowerPoint is using WSU, that's a width pattern in the background. Okay, and texture can soften a background while still providing the visual interest. So when you add textures, okay, to your background, okay, you can decide to increase once again opacity of the texture, and it would appear more. The texture would appear more. Okay, you can also decide to reduce the texture so that you have a soft feel. Wood is grainy. Wood is the grains are wood is rough. Okay, but you can give your illustration a soft feel once you just reduce the opacity. Okay, aside that, you would realize that most artworks have a texture. Plain background, for instance, this PowerPoint presentation here, or this video presentation I'm doing, you can see the texture is just plain. Okay, once we start adding some texture to it, your mind tells you, okay, this looks a bit different. Okay, what I would like you to do is that as we go through these lessons, try and apply it. Try and see if you've ever identified. Try and see if you can identify some of these things we are talking about. Okay, it makes sense more. It will start to be part of you as you identify it within other people's designs that they've done. Okay. Next, we'll talk about space. So, what is space? Space is known as a white space, negative space. A negative space doesn't imply something unfavorable, but rather or define the space that surrounds an object. So you'd remember our previous slide where I spoke about the donut, okay, from shapes. So we have a shape here like this, but we are having a donut shape also being created as negative space, okay. So that is what space is. Now space can be used, for instance, this is space, okay. We have space here, so I have my text arranged here, and there's space over here, there's space in between the text or the images, there's space here, there's space here. So this is what we will term as a white space, okay. But negative space is this: we have an image here like this, okay. You would see a human being's face here, you see a human being's face here, this is the nose, this is the mouth, okay. But then someone too will look into the negative space over here and see a globe, or a golden, not golden, but is a cup, yes. You would see a cup, a wine cup, okay, over here. So that is what negative space is doing over here. You can add this or use this principle of element of design when you are working on your flyers. How? You create a shape and you emphasize on the thing in the negative space, okay. And so you can start a flyer, you can do something like this for your flyer. Place maybe the text in here, or place text within the shape of this, okay, within the shape over here. And that is you employing negative space in your design, okay. There are countless number of ways that designers have used negative space in achieving a lot of very nice things. You can search for that. Just search for negative space on Google and you have a lot of things. This over here, we are using white space, we are using negative space over here. Here we are using white space here, okay. And with white space, it's just a place where we can either, it's just for comfort, just to relax, just to make sure everything is organized, just to make sure that everything is aligned well, okay. So that's the use of space. Now space can create focus, can create direction, legibility and readability, okay. And it's used, it's a very good tool in establishing hierarchy, okay. And so we can see, okay, there's white space over here, we have our big font here, followed by these objects which have been arranged well, and because the spaces here are even, it leads our eye from here, we come here, we come here, and then we come here, okay. So you will see that the space, the white space over here is here, and there's a big white space also over here, okay. Or this is where we place our text, and that leads our eyes just straight to these ones. Then the eye just, once the eye reads and reaches here, it starts wandering either here or here, here or here, and then it comes here. So that's what hierarchy is about, trying to lead your viewers' eyes towards the objects of the design. Next we have direction, that's also direction. We have tempo, how perhaps things are would look, how should I explain it? How things would seem to be moving within the image, okay. We also have pause and reflection too as well. So space, the space over here would mean, okay, once we read here, we read here, there's some pause because of the space that we see, okay. These things are done, maybe done, you can achieve them consciously or not consciously, but these are some elements of the design which make the design holistic and cool or appear very well, okay. So that's about it. Next we'll move to principles of design, okay. I'll pause here and we'll start a new session of principles of design.